Afternoon, students. This is Professor Globe. This is week 13 lecture. Let me share the slides out. Okay, all right. Again, sorry, let me get these back to starting point. Here we go. All right, week 13 lecture. All right, catch up there. Topics, again, digging more into the cyber defense technologies of endpoint security, intrusion detection systems, or perimeter defense, data loss prevention, insider threat, application security, and artificial intelligence, security and challenges that AI brings. So why is endpoint security important to a layered defense strategy? So endpoint security layering such that you could implement antivirus or anti-malware protection, application controls. You get application firewalls. Along with endpoint security, you get VPN. So that's encryption for end-to-end for, again, further security and privacy. Um, in your multi-layered protection, you want to make sure that you have not only endpoint protection, but perimeter security, cloud security, a secure edge. So no matter where you're logging in, on what network you're on, multi-factor authentication with zero trust, always authenticate and authorize users or processes to access um, applications or assets on a company's network. Again, general network security, endpoint security, insider threat protection, and data protection. That is your multi-layer protection approach. Um, in the Also in the kind of category of endpoint security, there is next generation antivirus. The big difference there is traditional antivirus only offers signature-based um, detection. Next generation offers both signature and anomalous, but it doesn't mean that you actually have ML on the module or on the software itself. Some vendors, they actually send threat information, potential malicious activity up to their cloud present where the ML engine is running. It is processed there, and if it deems malicious, that alert or event data or metadata is sent back to the agent to then alert the user. So next generation AV is also a growing trend. Zero trust network access is also part of endpoint security because you can put in policies in place to always authorize access to assets on that endpoint. ZTNA assumes no endpoint or user is trusted by default. It is continuously verifies identity compliance before granting access. When you discuss, along with ZTNA, you have to talk about secure access, secure edge, which combines cloud security with endpoint protection to secure mobile and remote workforces by integrating what they call a software defined wide area network. So a logically defined network and security capabilities like ZTNA and firewall as a service. Again, this is software defined firewalls. It's like a next generation application firewall. You can protect things at all the protocol levels, up and down the TCP/IP stack. So examples of endpoint security that provide all of these capabilities, you can see CrowdStrike and SentinelOne offer endpoint detection and response and next generation firewall solutions. Here you see a typical endpoint security software stack and what the vendors like SentinelOne and CrowdStrike offer, whether it's just basic operating system protection, and that could be across mobile, PC, or server style operating systems, as you can see there. Then you get up to what type of basic security it offers. It starts at just basic, threat detection or malicious activity detection. Then you get into endpoint encryption for VPN services. Then you get into other types of protection services like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, logging, log parsing. That's the EPP part of your endpoint protection. Then you can get into advanced. Advanced is where you get into application control. Again, this is your zero trust part here. Application containment, in case you deem malicious activity, this stops um, threats from growing laterally. So that's a key part in your advanced security. And then EDR, which gives you machine learning based threat detection, and XDR, which will then protect not only your on-premise environment, your remote users, but your cloud platform. So that's your XDR parts of that. And then you can see what that brings in is mobile defense and cloud workload defense. And then, of course, people and processes where you get your training piece there. So this is your typical stack. Make sure you know what a typical endpoint stack is. Then, this is another infographic that really kind of tells about, users over time, their capability, maturity level for protecting themselves against malware attacks. If they were a level one ad hoc, they had no maybe policies, procedures, they didn't have a layered defense approach, then they were vulnerable to roughly 80% of different types of malware. But as they matured, they had some basic maturity. Maybe they had a router, a network firewall router, and maybe some type of minimum monitoring in place. Then that reduced their, attack footprint from 40% to 80%, a little bit better. But it didn't protect them from phishing attacks. Um, at all. And, in order to really improve that, you really need to get into having a patch management program, some type of email security, URL filtering, and that puts you into the basic to level 3. And as you notice here on this diagram put out by Gartner, really the basics should include email protection, phishing protection, some type of URL inspection. And then you get into more into the manage where you say, hey, let's make sure we have a good architecture, so segmented or network segmentation, a good security awareness program, vulnerability management program, optimize our endpoint platform protection. So doing some of the things in that advanced section on the previous diagram, et cetera, but also including some type of both on-premise, remote user, and cloud platform protection at the same time. And then you keep growing up the maturity level, as you can see here in the diagram. Your most advanced, really where you can avoid not only being attacked, but being recon, where they're set up for attacks, is you're doing activities like threat hunting. You can do containment, isolate machines, and do investigations. Maybe throw up honeypots to see what type of TTPs cyber criminals are doing against your environment or your sector, and then building in protection against those specific things through your threat hunting activity, having a trust pass filter, basically saying we trust these areas and we don't trust all others, is another way of looking at that. But as you can see, that's in the most advanced level 5. All right, so that's endpoint protection. Then you get into content filtering. So content filtering is the broader category of data loss prevention, because at the end of the day, what data loss prevention was built for was content filtering. Content filtering is a powerful tool that is, if properly deployed, can offer um, companies whether it's state, local, tribal government, protection by classifying, tagging data, and then assuring that only authorized users, that CIA type of only authorized users um, can access it, make changes to it, or make it available to them. So at the end of the day, what content filtering and DLP provides is CIA protection. Um, while there are many legitimate uses for the internet or getting out onto the internet, it still brings a risk to any organization, such as loss of productivity. Sensitive data could be breached and stolen. Application performance, because having bots eat up CPU time. So you need to deploy protection on your internal network, in addition to protecting your endpoint. And a big part of that is providing, content filtering services um, across various industries or across various departments in your organization. So, content filtering technologies, why is it so important? It helps maintain compliance. So, especially when those regulations in the finance or fintech and medical utilities industry, where you must have a certain level of protection and encryption and access control, protect company and client sensitive data, maximize employee productivity, meaning data is available to them, avoid costly legal liabilities due to sexual harassment. Again, that's the content filtering, looking for keywords that should not be used, whether it's in text messaging or emails. So it helps avoid those types of things. Three types of data DLP protects is data in motion, data at rest, and data in use. Make sure you know that. All right. Three types of data DLP protects is data in motion, data at rest, data in use. DLP monitors and controls sensitive data flow to prevent unauthorized access and leakage. Um, there's also, native traditional DLP solutions, and there's cloud-based DLP solutions like Microsoft Information Protection and Google Workspace. DLP solutions are designed specifically to protect cloud environments, so that's your cloud native DLP solutions. They can provide content inspection, so cloud-based native solutions analyze files, emails, other types of data for sensitive content. To make sure IP is not leaked, make sure PII is not a part of emails or part of public-facing websites or not being sent through APIs. This is another big part of it, API security in your content inspection and contextual analysis. Um, DLP, which can secure data in cloud environments by enforcing policies across your cloud storage and cloud communication tools, whether it's the user interface, the API that's being used, or your suppliers, your supply chain. Examples could semantic DLP and McAfee Total Protections is some of your leading DLP tools. DLP technology deploys, again, tagging or classifying data. That's its big part. Automated, it can automate that data classification based on the type of data. It could be many different ways you tell it to go discover data, and it'll classify them and tag them, and then you can correct that mapping. Integration with cloud storage, such as Cloud Native DLP, can integrate with tagging systems and cloud storage solutions like Google Drive, OneDrive, AWS S3, etc. Big takeaway there is it's key in doing tagging. It does real-time monitoring, just like your endpoint or your intrusion detection system. It does in-time monitoring for, again, sensitive PPI, content filtering, IP data, um, abusive language, misuse of company data. And it provides, monitoring for unauthorized access, et cetera. A big one, take one here, behavior monitoring, anomaly detection. Cloud DLP tools can track user behavior. to detect anomalous that might suggest unauthorized or risky behavior. Again, this is where DLP can be used to identify potential insider threat behavior. No surprise here. It can integrate with cloud applications. It can provide role-based access control. You can build customizable policies and templates. So many cloud DLP and traditional DLP solutions, even though I'm saying this is really talking about cloud, but if you need to be compliant with GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, you can put those rules and create a policy around that. And the DLP solution will help you enforce those policies across all your data assets, all your data assets. DLP also helps with incident response and remediation. It can automate the incident response and reporting when DLP policies are violated. It can send an alert to your security operations center to be investigated. Cloud native and traditional DLP solutions automatically generate alerts and notifications to administrators and log these events. Automated remediation actions. Most tools offer this. Your endpoint offers this too. DLP is no different than your kind of modern day um, monitoring tools. Really not monitoring, it's just these your detection and response tool. So that's the you have endpoint detection and response, network detection and response. So that's that D and R part of it. DLP offers that capability. So, you're as a future technical professional, DLP implementation should be policy driven with a focus on understanding the data of an organization and what business units need what data and how they process that data. You want to understand the baseline of those needs, those processing and data storage needs, so you can then do anomalous type detection. That's where you can do prevent insider threat. Um, Avoid problems later in the program by identifying data loss risks, your prioritization coverage, build and supporting and governance ongoing processes as a priority. When you're kind of tagging those data assets, add weights to them, what's of higher priority or the most sensitive, what's your intellectual property. You add more policies and you limit access to those types of sensitive areas. Again, this all takes time to build this type of approach. So again, we kind of talked about all of this, mapping DLP controls to your data sources and destinations. This just kind of gives you a workflow based on where the data is stored, whether it's in a server or data center, in a managed or unmanaged endpoint. Uh, Unmanaged endpoint means there's no monitoring on that endpoint. Um, and then you go up to the next level, what type of controls you want to put in place, whether it's a firewall, network monitoring, um, a a network broker, a cloud access a broker, that's your CASB or endpoint DLP, et cetera. Keep going up the workflow stack here. All right, so then next is intrusion detection. So intrusion detection, we've talked about this some already when it comes to monitoring your network perimeter. An IDS that can come as either equipment or software based. An IDS ensures real-time attacks are being detected and those alerts are being sent to your security operations center. An IDS can be configured to monitor both inbound and outbound traffic. IDS comes in many different types, as you can see here, network-based, host-based. It can be intrusion detection only or intrusion detection and prevention, meaning it can block. It could have some IDSs that are specialized in just monitoring certain types of protocols to include industrial control or SCADA types of protocols, or application-based protocols. So just browser HTTP. So your web application firewall could be considered like a type of APIDs that you see here. Just more on intrusion detection technologies across your network, your hosts, and your cloud-based ones. We saw that in the Gartner info diagram already. The key different types. is you have your network base, which are traditionally signature base detection, meaning using rules, and your host base IDS are anomalous, which means they use machine learning. So definitely make sure you know the basic difference there. Um, Another category of intrusion detection system is network detection and response, NDR. It is an advanced solution for monitoring network traffic because it uses machine learning to look for patterns. And it is what they call unstructured machine learning. So it can get a random amount of varying types of data that comes across, and it's just looking for patterns. Again, this is a really good way to monitor a perimeter where the egress and ingress point of any company is at to see all traffic. A wide aperture is what they call it. And vendors out there that provide NDR solutions is Dark Trace. I think they're out of Canada. They may have been bought out by now. And Extra Hop. The network perimeter has forever changed. Now, when you get cloud, so your network perimeter is can be dynamic. Depends on where it's being accessed, where your data is being processed and stored in a cloud provider. So this gives you some basic idea of the types of security you need when you're in a mixed environment or a hybrid environment. So your data types are you have some assets on premise and you have some assets in the cloud. You still need to do network risk assessment because people are people. You need to do a security architecture as far as segmentation and architecture control. You need to make sure you have DDoS prevention on-prem and in the cloud, and then you keep going up the stack. So your advanced security is you need to have some type of software-based segmentation, that's micro-segmentation. Um, Secure your edge, have NDR, network monitoring, in addition to firewall as a service, DNS security, encryption. So your VDI, whether you're using some type of snapshot imaging to provide services to your customers or your staff, and then get into the basic security, as you can see here, and your architecture. And the core of that basic security and architecture, again, is a zero trust with multi-factor authentication, DDoS protection, um, endpoint security, along with network monitoring, are all key there. So protect your perimeter, but also protect your endpoint. So that's your multi-layered approach. In application security, as you can see here, it covers software development vulnerabilities, web security, database security. In application security, you want to focus on authentication, authorization to the application, have some integration in encryption, make sure it can support encryption of processes and sending data through APIs, logging activity, and then doing testing against your security posture. What is CERT? That's Carnegie Mellon Emergency Response Team, and is an organization that focuses on secure coding practices and procedures. It has a domain called AppSec, the process of protecting data by having a secure software development lifecycle that includes, considering security throughout your software development lifecycle, your SDLC, whether it's design, development, and deployment, and in your use cases, security fairs, knowing how to protect data. So this is where you would say, yeah, we want to have a DLP system. Here's a type of data. Then tag that data. Here's the modules that we're going to develop, et cetera. Other things to consider in application security is how do you prevent buffer overflows, making sure you are accounting for raised conditions and testing for that, having input validations to prevent buffer overflows, is in particular kind of web-based attacks of SQL injection. This is just some more types of attacks that you want to focus on or test for in your as a part of your SDLC. again, more types of application-specific attacks, in particular cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery, attack carried out by placing code in the form of a scripting language into a web page. And if you don't do input validation, your web pages could be acceptable to these types of client-side attacks. Then some of the newer kind of methodologies that are recent in 2022, 2023 is secure by design. This is put out by the federal government. Secure by design products are those where the security of the customer is core to the business requirement. So you don't release a commercial product without having a secure configuration, those attestations we kind of talked about, where the manufacturer or the vendor tests for security and they determine the best security posture of their product, and it's up to the customer to decide if they want to configure it like that. And secure by default, again, secure by default products are those that are secure to use out of the box. Again, that's again where the manufacturers um, give you a. I'm sorry, I had it wrong. Secure by design is what we just talked about, having a secure, taking into account security throughout the software development lifecycle. That's secure by design. Secure by default is where the manufacturer determines the best security configurations, and they provide you that information. It is up to the customer to decide. Yes, I want to disable this feature and enable this feature, and your default is not wide open, a software or operating system you buy from a company. It is a secure configuration, which is the opposite of what we have today. Now getting to the last topic is what is AI? Started with a definition. AI is a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning. There's different types of AI, machine learning, which we've kind of talked about. It's a subset of AI that helps computers learn from data and improve over time on specific tasks or one or more tasks. Then there's deep learning, a subset of machine learning that uses multi-layered neural networks to model complex patterns. Then there's generative AI, a subset of deep learning that creates new content similar to data it has been trained on. I won't read that. You can read that in your time. This again just carries you through not only the different types of AI, but the use cases for those different types of AI. Again, this talks about generative AI and its basic conceptual model of it's being learned. You can see the LLM is, going from elementary to graduating from high school and then going to college and getting another 4 years. That's a period of time of learning and experience that you give to the AI model. It ingests that information and it learns, iterates over it over and over till it says, I get it. Once it get it, now it can make decisions and produce information, voice, graphics, video, etc. So that's the generative AI conceptual model. And this is the data sets it learns on and the number of times it iterates over those tokens. Every word within these large, very large data sets. The use cases are that machine learning is being used all over the place, basically, and generative AI is being used all over the place, hospitals, banks, manufacturing, as you can see here for sensors. So you get into the Internet of Things, from monitoring, which we've already talked about. I'm going to skip some of these. Make sure you read through these slides here. Here's an activity I want you to take a look at. We've talked about 3 types of AI, traditional machine learning, I'm sorry, 4 types, and generative AI. You answer these questions on which type it is. I put these in some more use cases on AI for your consideration. More about use cases, and this is the one I want to get to. And then there's the concerns about ethical and bias and what they call misalignment of the model. But there are attacks, cyber attacks being formed around these types of weaknesses in the model and understanding how an AI model or AI software or service learns. And so bias could be in the form of really misinformation or incorrect information, or is making conclusions incorrectly, um, and that could be on purpose. And so, you have these bias introductions into the models, so it can provide incorrect answers on purpose. And cyber criminals are starting to figure out. So what does that mean for organizations who are going to use AI and generative AI technology? They got to put acceptable use policies in place. They need to understand what are some best practices. They need to understand a lot of this technology is immature, so you're going to have bias and misalignment. And so you got to have some way of testing the results or the generated information you get. There's potential for widespread copyright infringement, especially, and if an organization doesn't have any type of verification and validation process of what the AI, generative AI, is producing, that could lead to lawsuits because of copyright infringements. Um, Current challenges of CISOs and CIOs, again, is understanding the tactics of the new types of attacks. Right now, we mainly focus on phishing attacks, but there will be more types of attacks, in particular to the LLM, because that's the brain of how it learns, and or the front end piece of it. And then always keeping an eye on the laws and regulations. So the White House has this safe, secure, and trustworthy development of the use of AI issued back in August of 2023, where it's focusing on acceptable uses of AI technology and what's not acceptable uses of AI technology. Some of that centers around biasness, misinformation, disinformation. This gives you just a summary of the regulatory, government operations, consumer protection, public safety, and elections that are out there as of earlier this year. This is a little bit dated, but as you can see from this spreadsheet, that states are leading the charge in making sure that the consumer's data is being protected, and there are acceptable use policies in place for government agencies that are going to be using generative AI in particular to provide services to their citizens. And that's it. So that's a week 3 summary in place. And we will see you next week. Good luck on the quiz.